الوزراء الكندي جاستن ترودو عن أخبار سارة للكنديين في المحيط الأطلسي والكنديين في المناطق الريفية والناس في جميع أنحاء البلاد. وكتب على صفحته على الفيسبوك: نحن نضع المزيد من الأموال في جيبك ونسهل عليك العثور على حلول ميسورة التكلفة وطويلة الأجل لتدفئة منزلك، وأيضا لدينا حلول معقولة لمساعدتك على المدى الطويل لتأجير منزلك.
I'm the Member of Parliament for King's Hands in beautiful Nova Scotia, and I'm proud and privileged to say that I am the chair of the Atlantic Liberal Caucus. Je suis fier et privilégié d'être le président du Caucus libéral de l'Atlantique. As you will see, I'm joined by my colleagues from the Atlantic Caucus, as many of those who could be here today, and of course the Prime Minister. I'm wearing a Nova Scotia tartan tie, and I'm wearing it anytime I have the chance to be in Ottawa. I try to wear it because we're proud, of course, of where we come from, not just Nova Scotia, but indeed all Atlantic provinces. But I wear it on days that are special and announcements and initiatives that really matter to the people we represent, and today is one of those days. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour annoncer des mesures cruciales pour la question d'abordabilité dans le Canada atlantique, ainsi que des changements aux politiques nationales du gouvernement pour s'assurer qu'elles reflètent les différentes réalités vécues à travers le pays. And I want to say, as the chair of the Atlantic Caucus, I couldn't be prouder of the 24 members that sit in our caucus for their advocacy, because we have remained steadfast, focused on the question of affordability, and also seeking to advance solutions that matter to the people we represent. And I want to give some context to the journalists who are here in the room, and indeed Canadians that might be watching at home. Atlantic Canada has a higher proportion of any residents living outside of urban areas than any other region of the country. So we are the most rural in all of the country. Nous avons un grand nombre de parcs immobiliers locatifs qui, dans plusieurs cas, sont inefficaces au sens de leur consommation d'énergie. We also have a disproportionately high number of households that still use home heating to heat their homes. In fact, in my home province of Nova Scotia, that rate is close to 40%. Il est important de comprendre que le Canada est un grand pays et que la réalité vécue par ses concitoyens peut être très différente. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui reflète des programmes et des changements de politique qui tiennent compte de cette réalité. Well, today's announcement is going to be good news for Atlantic Canada. It is good news across the country, including in rural Canada. As a Member of Parliament representing a rural riding, today's adjustments and programming are welcomed as a better way to ensure that our programs are meeting the needs of all Canadians, including those, of course, living in rural Canada. But it is important to remember why we have instituted a national price on pollution across the country. It is one of the most effective ways to be able to fight climate change and reduce emissions. And I want to remind folks, there are 77 jurisdictions around the world that have a form of carbon pricing. Canada is not alone. We are shared similar policies. And of course, this summer was a reminder of the impact of climate change. No one in Atlantic Canada needs reminders more than us. For those that live in Port aux Basques, the impacts of Hurricane Fiona. For those in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, the impact of forest fires this summer. And indeed, the flash floods that Nova Scotia saw this past year. In fact, we lost 4 people in my riding in terrible flooding. So today's announcement shows leadership of responding to a national question of affordability and environmental progress. While our caucus were strong advocates to find adjustments, this was a whole-of-government approach. And I want to thank our Atlantic cabinet ministers. We have 6 of them. I know that they have been strong advocates at the cabinet table, and I want to certainly thank 3 cabinet ministers in particular whose portfolio touches upon today's announcement perhaps the most. To Minister Guilbeault, to Minister Wilkinson, and indeed to Minister Freeland. I know they have worked extremely hard to be able to move this forward. I had a number of personal conversations with Minister Freeland. I know she has been a strong advocate, and I want to personally thank her as well. But ultimately, these types of announcements that are being made today is the prerogative of the Prime Minister. And Prime Minister, on behalf of our caucus, I want to say thank you for listening to our feedback, but also showing vision on how we can support important affordability measures and long-term supports to help people with a transition. I want to contrast that with the Leader of the Official Opposition. He'll be in Atlantic Canada this weekend. offering simplistic solutions that don't offer long-term support on affordability. He has been the leader of the Conservative Party now for over a year and has offered no vision, no plan, and no evidence that he cares about balancing the important questions of affordability and environment. In fact, his party, just a couple weeks ago, voted against the legislation the government put forward, C-49. And for those at home that may not know, that is legislation that is crucial to Atlantic Canada's clean energy future. It is supported by the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Hewson. It is supported by the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Furey. And the Conservatives voted against our future on that. Today's announcement stands in complete contrast to what I just talked about, and I want to welcome the Prime Minister to deliver today's important news. Prime Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Cody, for your words, but also for your leadership. It is an extraordinary team I have behind me, and all of you worked incredibly hard to make sure we got to this place. And Cody, your voice resonated strongly in caucus and across Atlantic Canada. So it's really great to be here today with this entire Atlantic team, who are just outstanding representatives in the region, who continue to focus on the big things that matter to people, continue to focus on being there to solve the challenges of this very challenging time in the right ways that are going to leave people better off for years and even decades to come. La réalité, c'est qu'il y a des gens qui ont de la difficulté à payer leurs factures présentement et qui vivent énormément de pression, pas juste en Atlantique, mais à travers le pays. On a déjà pris bien des mesures pour aider les Canadiens à joindre les deux bouts, y compris le remboursement pour l'épicerie et les services de garde d'enfants à 10 $ par jour. Et aujourd'hui, on prend les nouvelles mesures pour s'assurer que notre engagement à protéger notre environnement continue à être mis en œuvre d'une manière qui profite aux gens des provinces de l'Atlantique et des régions rurales à travers le pays. Let me first talk a bit about the price on pollution. Economists and experts around the world have long known that putting a price on carbon emissions is the best way to drive down those emissions that cause climate change. And now we designed that price on pollution so that it incentivizes people to choose less polluting ways to live and work, and it puts money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 households where the federal system applies. So it both drives behavior and puts more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 households across the country. So it supports people to make better choices and puts money back in their pockets. However, we've heard clearly from Atlantic Canadians through our amazing Atlantic MPs that since the federal pollution price came into force this summer, replacing provincial systems, certain features of that pollution price needed to be adjusted to work for everyone. Specifically, as Cody said, many people in Atlantic Canada and in rural communities across the country rely on home heating oil. To be blunt, the price signal on heating oil is not resulting in enough people being able to switch to electric heat pumps, despite people wanting to move to these cleaner home heating options. Well, as a government that is focused on evidence and data and outcomes, and that is listening to Canadians, we heard you. We heard our Atlantic MPs and we heard Atlantic Canadians. We heard it through conversations at the door, conversations with other orders of government, concerns, even as people were concerned about the need to continue to fight climate change, concerns about our abilities to continue to support our families and make it through winters, and concerns that even though people wanted to do the right thing, they weren't necessarily given the option or the ability to do it. So this team behind me worked incredibly hard with our ministers, with our whole team, to get it right, to make sure that we are still leading in the fight against climate change, that we are unwavering in our commitment to protect Atlantic Canadians and indeed all Canadians from the extreme weather events that are increasingly the norm, while ensuring that people can be confident about their present and their future financially. Now, Cody talked about how all Atlantic Canadians understand as well as anyone else in the country why we need to fight climate change and what the impacts of extreme weather are on people. But we have to make sure we're fighting climate change in ways that supports all Canadians. That has been at the center of our choices as a government for the past 8 years. Fight climate change while supporting Canadians in how we do it. So that is why today we are announcing a 3-year pause on the federal pollution price on heating oil so that we can give everyone the time and ability to switch to heat pumps. Now, switching to an electric heat pump from oil heating, which is very vulnerable to volatile global market prices, can save people a lot of money. In fact, it can mean as much as thousands of dollars a year less spent on energy bills. So the second part of our announcement today is that, piloting in the Atlantic, we're working with provinces to install a free heat pump for people who are making at or below median household income. And to encourage people to sign up for the change, we're providing a $250 incentive payment. That's money in your pocket right now. Yeah, we didn't know about that one, guys. And for everyone else, we've got an enhanced program that will deliver heat pumps up front to be paid off with the savings you'll be getting over the coming years. We are switching to heat pumps off home heating oil as a region in Atlantic Canada and as a country. And one more thing, today we are doubling from 10 to 20% the rural top-up that people get as part of their quarterly pollution price rebates. Because if you live in a rural community, you don't have the same options that people who live in cities do. We get that. So this is more money in your pocket to recognize those realities, even as we continue to fight climate change and build a stronger economy. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui couvre une série de mesures qui incluent de doubler le supplément pour les résidents des régions rurales dans le cadre des remises trimestrielles pour la tarification de la pollution. Ça va aussi permettre à plus de gens d'opter plus facilement pour une thermopompe qui va leur faire économiser de l'argent et garder notre air propre. This package has a lot of big pieces that will make a real difference. The bottom line is this. Life is tough for many people right now. And it can be tough in different ways depending on whether you live in the Atlantic or in rural Ontario or in a big city like Montreal or Calgary. I hear that. This team hears that. We'll always have your back. By investing in you, by putting more money in your pocket, and by finding the right solutions that not only make life more affordable, but keep a strong, healthy future for everyone. Canada is the best country in the world. Let's keep working to make it even better. Je suis content maintenant de prendre vos questions.
La première question est à Denis Davin, Radio-Canada.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, avec tous les efforts consentis pour lutter contre les changements climatiques, force est de constater aujourd'hui que vous reculez, que c'est un pas en arrière. Est-ce que vous donnez finalement raison à Pierre Poilievre?
Au contraire, l'annonce d'aujourd'hui nous permet d'accélérer encore plus dans nos investissements pour contrer les changements climatiques. On a vu que le prix sur la pollution n'était pas suffisant pour que assez de gens passent aux thermopompes. Donc on va dire, s'ils n'ont pas ce choix-là, donnons-leur l'option. Alors on annonce aujourd'hui un programme qui va livrer des thermopompes gratuitement pour ceux qui sont aux revenus moyens ou moins, et en travaillant avec les provinces, et pour tous les autres, on va offrir des thermopompes dès le début qui vont pouvoir payer avec les économies qui vont amener au cours des années. Mais on veut que ce changement se fasse rapidement. Donc, on donne un horizon de 3 ans pendant lesquels le prix sur la pollution lié au chauffage à l'huile ne sera pas appliqué pour que les gens, justement, puissent profiter et soient motivés pour profiter de ce programme. Et d'ailleurs, pour le programme à gens à faible revenu avec un thermopompe gratuit, on va offrir, en partenariat avec les provinces, un bonus ou un encouragement de 250 $ pour qu'ils le fassent. Le but de notre prix sur la pollution, c'est de changer les comportements et appuyer les Canadiens pendant qu'ils changent, qu'ils luttent contre les changements climatiques et qu'ils améliorent l'environnement. C'est exactement ce qu'on amène avec ce programme. Donc, on est en train de miser encore plus sur notre approche pour lutter contre les changements climatiques parce que c'est bon pour la planète, c'est bon pour l'économie et c'est bon pour les familles.
Mais une autre question, si vous le permettez. Par définition, la taxe sur le carbone, il faut que ça fasse mal. On veut forcer les gens à changer leurs habitudes. Ça ne va pas à l'encontre, justement, de l'esprit même de votre mesure?
Non, parce que cette taxe carbone sur le chauffage à l'huile ne résultait pas, n'avait pas comme conséquence qu'assez de gens optaient pour des thermopompes. C'est un investissement d'autour de 20 000 $ et il y a beaucoup de gens, malgré les pressions exercées par ce signal de prix, ne faisaient pas ou ne pouvaient pas faire ce changement. Donc nous reconnaissons que si notre but, c'est d'améliorer les économies familiales et de lutter contre les changements climatiques, nous devons mettre sur pied un programme qui va livrer ces solutions que les gens ne sont pas en train, ou n'ont pas la capacité de choisir tout seuls. Donc, avec une pause de 3 ans, nous allons pouvoir livrer ces thermopompes aux gens qui continuent encore de miser sur le chauffage à l'huile, ce qui est bon pour l'environnement, bon pour l'économie, bon pour les familles pendant les années à venir.
Bonjour, M. le Premier ministre. J'aimerais vous entendre au sujet de la tuerie au Maine. À cette heure-ci, le tireur est toujours en fuite. Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire sur les mesures de sécurité à la frontière? Est-ce qu'elles ont été renforcées?
Oui, je peux vous assurer que notre ministre des Services publics est là-dessus, est en contact avec nos homologues aux États-Unis et est en train de faire des suivis pour s'assurer que tout le monde soit sain et sauf. Évidemment, nos pensées sont d'abord avec nos amis au Maine et leurs familles qui souffrent un moment affreux, mais nous allons toujours être là pour assurer la protection de tous les Canadiens. Okay. Obviously, our thoughts go out to our friends in Maine and neighbors in Maine who are suffering a terrible, terrible moment right now. Of course, we have been engaged with our border services agencies and with the appropriate police forces to ensure extra protections for Canadians.
Par rapport à Israël, plusieurs de vos homologues internationaux y sont allés déjà, vos homologues américains, français, britanniques, etc., plusieurs autres. Pourquoi n'y êtes-vous pas encore allés 3 semaines après les événements?
On est là pour continuer d'aider à protéger la vie civile, à s'assurer qu'on puisse avancer avec la plus de protection pour les individus possible. On est là pour aider avec de l'aide humanitaire. On appelle à plus d'accès humanitaire. On appelle à la libération des otages. Je suis toujours ouvert à y aller, mais on va toujours regarder comment on peut faire une différence positive avec notre présence. Je suis très content que et la ministre Joly et le ministre Hussein ont représenté le Canada avec brio au Caire pendant les discussions là, et on va continuer d'être très bien impliqués dans la région.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Why wait until now to do this?
I think this is an important moment where we're adjusting policies so that they have the right outcome. We are doubling down on our fight against climate change and keeping true to the principles that we are supporting Canadians while we fight climate change. We recognize that for many people, particularly in Atlantic Canada, where the proportion of home heating oil is higher than elsewhere across the country, regardless of the price signal, they were unable to make the switch to heat pumps, for example. So we decided to take a slightly different tack of suspending the price on pollution on home heating oil for 3 years while we ensure that everyone can get access to a heat pump and get it installed. Free, working with the provinces for people on the below the median income scale, and upfront with an interest-free loan to pay it back with the savings they're going to make on electricity for higher income people. This is a program that continues to push what we need, which is to reduce our emissions and to support families as we do it. It's a program that took a lot of hard work and a lot of discussions in terms of getting it right, but the various elements that we're announcing today, I know, are going to be extremely well received by people across Atlantic Canada.
Does part of this, though, not impact your efforts to lower emissions, and can you still achieve your environmental targets?
We're going to be achieving our environmental targets even better because of this, because as people switch to heat pumps, which is part of what the price signal that a price on pollution gives, is to encourage people to adopt measures that reduce their emissions. On the reality of people with home heating oil in Atlantic Canada specifically, the price signal was not enabling them, not sufficient to have them make the investment necessary. So with this decision we've taken to work with the provinces to deliver free heat pumps to families making at or below the median income, and make sure that families making more than that have access to heat pumps up front, to be paid off with a zero interest loan based on the savings they're going to make over years. It's a way to drive the change in behaviors even faster. We are accelerating our fight against climate change in a part of the country that knows all too well how important it is to both fight climate change and to make sure life is affordable.